Hey everybody, Jane here, and we are doing a follow-up to my 5-star predictions. My 5-star predictions video we did in, I think it was June. It was like 6 months ago when I predicted what books I was going to give 5 stars to. So let's see how I did with that.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soul spoken.
Alright, so let's see what the first book I thought I was going to give 5 stars to was. The first book I think might be a 5-star is A Wolf in Duke's Clothing. All right, so our first book is A Duke in Wolf's Clothing. And sadly, this was not a 5-star. I ended up giving this 3 stars and I almost DNF'd it. So basically, this is about Felicity, who is an orphan, and she's told that if she can make it to her 25th birthday without getting married, she will inherit a fortune. She wants to breed horses, and so she's really like shooting for that, and she doesn't think any guy is going to want her anyway because she doesn't have a dowry. Alfred Blakesley, the Duke of Lowell, shows up at a ball for the Tawn, and he's a werewolf, and he's like, oh, fated mate, that is my person. So he kidnaps her and runs off with her to ruin her, so she has to marry him. I love the ideas in here. I love the concepts in here. The writing did not at all do it for me. I was so frustrated with this writing because it was like so classic sounding. Like I had to struggle to get through it. It was like reading a classic. And I think if you are a person who likes the Regency romance that sound really authentic, this might work for you. It did not at all work for me. All right, so let's see about the next book. Next book, The Undomesticated Goddess by Sophia Kinsella. Okay. The next book is The Undomestic Goddess. This is about Samantha, who is an attorney, and for reasons, she one day runs away from being an attorney because she makes a mistake that is going to cost the company a lot of money, and she finds herself in a situation where she's stopping in a house to ask for directions, ask for assistance, and they think that she has come to apply for the housekeeping position. She's never been a housekeeper before, but she's like, yeah, sure, I can be your housekeeper. This will be great. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. I really like Sophie Kinsella. I think she is a very funny author. My big issue with this ended up being that a lot of it didn't really make sense, and you really had to like stretch the unbelievability bit, which I'm not always a huge fan of. And also the ending really made me mad. Like it ended, but it was just like, oh, here's the ending, and then I wanted more. I needed an epilogue. I needed something. So the ending really irritated me with how quickly it ended. So yeah, I think this is a fun time. I wouldn't say don't read it, but I definitely think there's a lot of things that could have gone better for me with it. Stack that I am the most concerned about. The book version of the Dead Poet Society. So the next book is Dead Poet Society. I thought this was going to be a 5-star because I love the movie. This was actually very faithful to the movie. It is a like movie to book adaptation instead of book to movie adaptation. And I think that's the biggest issue I have with it, which sounds really dumb, is it's so faithful to the movie that nothing really happens outside the movie, and I was like, I should just watch the movie. There's a couple scenes that add some character to it. I did think maybe the beginning of this would be even a bit confusing to read if you've never seen the movie, but I just like I wanted it to feel like I was getting the Dead Poet Society, but with a lot more. And it was pretty faithful to the movie. So while I love the movie, this doesn't have the charm of having Robin Williams and the great cast. And some things I think were better in the movie because of like you're seeing them and you're getting the really good beats to the humor, and they just fall a little short in the book. So I did end up giving this 4 stars. I thought it was fine, but I just didn't love it as much as I hoped to. All right, so our next book. The next book, A Lady for a Duke. All right, we have A Lady for a Duke. This is about Viola. She was assigned male at birth, but is a female. And she took the opportunity when she was fighting in the Battle of Waterloo. There was a situation where she was injured, and she took that opportunity to like let her old persona be, die. And she comes back to her family as Viola and explains to her brother, I believe her parents are gone, explains to her brother who she is and that he can have the title of the family and stuff, but she just wants to live a simple life as her true self. Now, during the Battle of Waterloo, she fought beside Gracewood, who was her best friend, and Gracewood is having a lot of trauma and difficulty accepting that his best friend has died. She goes to try to soothe him, but he doesn't know that Viola is the same friend that he fought beside, just looking a little bit different. And romance ensues. I ended up giving this a 4 star. I did enjoy a lot of it, including, of course, the representation. This is the first trans character I've ever read. I did like that there were bedroom scenes. They didn't shy away from any of that. I think my main issue with this was it was very hard to read. It was another one that I tried the audio actually initially, and it just the prose for me got in the way of the story quite a bit. There were a couple other things I had issues with, like I felt like it took a little bit too long in places and I got bored or frustrated and was like, could we just move on? I felt like by the time Viola tells Gracewood who she is, that it would be very hard for Gracewood to be like, oh, you've been not telling me this whole time and seeing me suffer and struggle. And uh, so there was just a few little things that I didn't love, but overall I thought this was a really fun read. Gracewood has injuries from the war, so not only do we have trans representation, we have PTSD, and then he has a leg injury, so he has to use a cane, I believe. It's been a little while since I've read this. And yeah, overall though, I recommend. I thought it was a good read, but it was not a 5 star. All right, let's see what's next. All right, this is another one that Beautifully Bookish Bethany recommended. The next was book, Red Clocks. And I'll tell you, of all of the books in this video, this is probably my second biggest disappointment. So my first biggest disappointment was The Duke in Wolf's Clothing. I put those back there so I'd have a place for them. This one was my biggest disappointment, but this one, next one, is the next one, and that is Red Clocks. So with Red Clocks, we have a dystopian society where fetuses have personhood, and we follow 4 women in the society and 1 additional woman to figure out how that affects the women of this world. There was a lot of good messaging in this book. It felt very literary, which is just not my thing, and that really got in the way of my enjoyment. I didn't enjoy the literary aspect of it, and I even got really frustrated with some of the character stuff that was happening. I only cared about one of the characters a lot. There was another that I cared about kind of, and then the other stories I was just like, "Why are you here?" in some cases. There is one person who I think she's called the healer or the mender, and I really didn't like her. I couldn't understand what the author was trying to go for. So you have one woman who is the biographer. She's a teacher, and her thing is she's trying to get pregnant, and a lot of the law has changed to make it very difficult for her to get pregnant because she can't have IVF. And then also, she is not married, and so she can't adopt. Then we have a teenage character who needs an abortion. And of course, abortion is not possible in this world. We have the healer mender. I don't remember what she's called. And she is kind of like the witch in the woods, who people go to for all of their naturalistic healing medical needs. And she is accused of performing an abortion, and goes to trial for that. We have another perspective of a woman who is having some marital trouble and doesn't want to be in her marriage anymore. And I don't really understand, I think, what her, like, how she was affected by the law. But she's going through just frustrations with her marriage and struggling as a parent with a partner who is not as helpful as he could be. The last perspective we get is a woman who is in the Arctic and is going on this Arctic voyage, and I didn't actually understand a lot of it. I don't know if this book was just too academic or too literary for me, but I just didn't end up enjoying it. And even though I thought the messaging was good, I wish it was in a much more digestible format. So I ended up giving this book a 3 star. The next book is
Okay,
No
so the
Bones About
next
It.
book
On our list is No Bones About It. I don't have this book anymore. I sent it to a friend because I didn't ever want to see it again. So this book ended up being a DNF, and it was the only DNF of this list, which is good. Only one DNF. Um, I just wasn't vibing with it. I opened it and started reading it, and it's in third person omniscient, which is not a POV I enjoy to begin with, so there was that. And then also just like I was looking for a mystery, and it was a mystery, but it was a very fantasy mystery. So you have a dark figure break into a library and steal a grimoire, and the archivist has gone to this psychic who has a werewolf companion, and they're trying to help figure out what creature stole this grimoire. And that just ended up not being for me. I like I said, I did send it to a friend who I think enjoys fantasy a lot more than I do, and I think they might have a much better time with it than I do. But it wasn't for me, and I ended up DNFing it. The next one is a recommendation from my real life bestie, Christina.
Okay,
And
so
it is
Wolf Gone
Wolf
Wild.
Gone Wild. This was my only 5 star of this video, sadly, but I did love it. So I did read it. It is about Evie, who is a hexbreaker witch, and Mateo, who comes to her. He's a werewolf, and he comes to her and he says, "Listen, I need help. I cannot turn into my werewolf, and now I've got all these, aggression issues and things. You need to help me figure out why I can't shift and fix it, because this life of not shifting as a werewolf is not okay." And so Evie kind of helps try to figure out what's going on, and they fall in love, and they are adorable. He's a sculptor, and she is a complete nerd. She loves comic books and things like that, and I just, in all my little nerd glory, loved it. Now, I will tell you, I read the second and third book, and so far they've only gotten 4 stars from me. They have not gotten the 5 stars that Wolf Gone Wild did. So I'm hoping as I continue the series to get another 5 star but so far it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, that one was a 5-star read. We did have one in this whole thing. The last one is
All right, and so
I'll
our
Be There For
last
You book from our 5-star predictions. And based on what I said last, but you know it's not a 5-star, was I'll Be There For You. This is by Brianna Wilkoff, and I met Brianna at an author event and bought her book. It seemed like I was going to really enjoy it. It has to do with theater. It's kind of a coming of age. It has beautiful discussions of grief. So our main character is Ray, and she is grieving the loss of her father. She is having some social issues with friends because she is so deeply in her grief and they just don't get it, which, is understandable but also frustrating for her. And she tries out for It's a Wonderful Life, the play, and there she meets a guy named Mac and they become best friends. This is, however, not a romance between her and Mac, and I kind of wanted it to be. So, the issues I had with this book, firstly, were just Ray is kind of annoying. She's a teenager. She's probably meant to be. I didn't like her and her mother's way of getting along. I understood why her and Mac couldn't be together, but I was kind of bummed that the author made the choices that they did, even though those are valid choices. And then the romance that does happen wasn't one that I was invested in. So I ended up giving this a 4-star. I did think it had some absolutely beautiful discussions about grief. I cried so many times. I loved Mac as a character, and I was glad that we got so much exploration into Mac and the reasons that he and Ray can't be together. I just felt like there was a lot of setup that felt like a romance, and then it wasn't a romance, and that kind of sucked. So, those were my 5-star predictions that I predicted 6 months ago. And of those, I only had one 5-star. So I'm hoping that my next set of 5-star predictions are better. And I'm also going to choose fewer books so it doesn't take me 6 months to get through them next time. But have you read any of these books? If so, what did you think? Do you do 5-star predictions, and how are your odds? Are you usually pretty good at guessing what you're going to give 5 stars to or not? I will say, like, I'm glad most everything was a 4-star. There was a couple 3 stars, but like most things I really enjoyed even if I didn't love them. So I guess that's a win. Anyway, leave all that in the comments below. If you don't know what to leave, but would still like to help me out and let the YouTube algorithms know that you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a little emoji of books down in the comments. This has been Jane. I'll see you next time. Bye! This is, I believe, a romance. It might be women's fiction because there's a relationship, but I don't know if it's a happily ever after. But it heavily involves theater. And I have really been into theater the last couple years. As a matter of fact, in August, me and my kiddo are trying out for a play. So I've been in one play before, and my kids have been in multiple plays. So I love theater, and I'm hoping that this will really speak to all the theater stuff that I love while also being a romance or a relationship book. So I'm super stoked about this as well. So those are my 5-star predictions. Firstly, if you've read them, do you think, based on what you know about my reading taste, that those will be 5 stars? Secondly, is anybody wanting to buddy read any of those books? I will give you till August the 1st to send me a DM or an email or whatever. My contact information's below. Send me a message and let me know what you want to buddy read. Because I have found I really love buddy reading, and it helps me to stay reading, stay motivated, and also, like, not that I'm not motivated to read books I love, but to really think through the books and have somebody to, like, toss ideas off of, really have fun with buddy read. So if you'd like to buddy read with me, please send me a message. We can make it happen. Till next time, guys, this has been Jane. Bye!